Hi guys, my name is Jen Adams, and we are walking through The Rest of God by Mark Buchanan. And our author tells us a tale today of when he was 7 years old and his mother had to step out of the house. She turns to him and his 9-year-old brother and says, "Look after things." But she left one specific instruction: do not touch the cake. She had just made a delicious, tasty, chocolate-covered chocolate cake, and she couldn't have been clearer. Do not touch it. Well, he heard her, but he also heard what she didn't say. She said, "Don't touch the cake." She didn't say anything about not touching the delicious chocolate frosting. So what does a child do? Well, at first he dabs at the little globs of icing that fell on the foil around the plate. After all, he's just helping her clean it up a little bit. But now he has the taste. Now he's pulled in by its deliciousness, so he takes 2 fingers and starts scooping around the rim of frosting that has drooped down the sides. He's digging ridges into the base of the cake. Soon he is grabbing a spatula and he's skimming off the top of the cake and the sides. Well, you can imagine that Mama noticed. Someone had tried to mask the thin areas of icing, mushed and pushed this already setting frosting into this mangled looking cake. Now there were consequences that Mark doesn't quite remember, but he does recall her saying something like, "Don't touch the cake" means don't touch the cake. Any of it, all of it, the whole thing. But how often do we seek out the minimal amount of obedience? Maybe we don't cross the line, but we get really close. Maybe we're putting our toes right to the edge of that line. Not quite breaking the command, but dabbling a finger in the frosting. The problem is that kind of obedience isn't really obedience at all. God gave us 10 commands, but each command builds on the next. There isn't one that you can kind of skirt and hope to get away with a minimal amount of obedience, still adhering to the others. When we're told not to steal, that command goes beyond the resistance to just take things. The 10 Commandments are a whole way of life, the practice of contentment, the discipline of appetites, the deepening of being trustworthy, the enlargement of generosity. Each command is a doorway to a vast world, and the Sabbath is part of those commands. It's no different. Instead of "thou shalt not," it has strong positives: remember, observe, keep, and stop. We don't want to skirt the lines of Sabbath, giving it our minimal obedience. And when we start focusing on Sabbath, we talked about how easy it is to fall into a kind of legalism, where we're just making up rules and adhering to them. We are strict and rigid. We have ideas of must and can't and ought and should. But after time, we start dipping a finger in the frosting, getting lax with loopholes, shortcuts, and excuses. That's why it's important to focus on the life-giving aspects of Sabbath, so we're looking forward to it instead of skirting around it. One thing is indispensable for Sabbath: to cease from what is necessary. Stop doing what you ought to do. There are 6 other days of the week to do what you ought. 6 days can be caught in the web of economic, social, and political necessity. Sabbath is that one day to reprieve from what you ought to do, even though that list of oughts is long and never done. It's the one day where the only thing you must do is not do the thing you must. You're given permission, commanded, really, to turn your back on the oughts. You get to shuck the have-tos and lay hold of your get-tos. So what are those for you? Can I or can I not chop wood on Sabbath? Well, ask yourself, is it necessary? Is it something that I must do, that I feel obligated to do? Then no, don't do that. That smells like an ought. But you can chop wood for the sheer exhilaration of it. Our author shares that chopping wood makes him feel alive. He spends day in and day out sitting in an office, taking phone calls, writing emails, studying, advising. Chopping wood puts him in touch with earth and sky, savoring the saltiness of his own sweat, the good ache in the muscles seldom used. That's the same with grass cutting for me. There is rhythm and luxury there, or the exact opposite of my kind of work. It feels like playing hooky. The fresh air and sunshine feel like a night on the town. But obviously, if you were a landscaper and your whole job was being outside and taking care of cutting grass, that might feel like work. And our author even shops. He avoids the kinds of trip like getting milk because you ran out and your kids won't have breakfast in the morning if you don't go. But rather, if he's driving with his family home on a nice afternoon where they've spent the whole day swimming and basking in the sun and relaxing, and they happen to see a fruit stand on the side of the road, and he says, "Oh, look at those plums." Or if it's a snowy evening and they were tubing out as a family that day, and they go past a quilt shop, and his wife says something like, "Oh, look at those pillowcases." Well, they don't scowl and turn pietous and say they're not going to go shopping just because it's Sabbath. They stop. They shop. They buy. There's nothing wrong with leisurely shopping, as long as it's life-giving rather than joy-stealing. But that's the second part of Sabbath's command, to embrace that which gives life. We need both parts, the ceasing and the embracing. We need to know not only what to avoid, but what to pursue. Now, what defines the shape and nature of that pursuit? Simple. Life and life abundant. When Jesus broke man-made Sabbath regulations, he healed, he fed, he claimed the right to rescue creatures falling into wells, or to lead to wells animals who were falling over from thirst. He wasn't being minimally obedient. Jesus pursued the things that gave life. Whatever has been stolen by the devil, or by sickness, or by sheer mishap and accident, these things he sought to take back and give back. Life abundant. He honored our created limits and restored our created greatness. What better day than Sabbath to trounce the enemy, reverse sickness, repair injury, and pamper ourselves? Stop trying to make things, and instead let the things you've already made bless you and serve you. That was part of last week's devotion. This is the day where the sweetest things are even sweeter, where we make the cake to have the cake, not just the disobedient dips of frosting. That's Sabbath's golden rule, to cease from what is necessary and to embrace that which gives life. Avoid the oughts, and then do what makes you feel alive. Those activities will be God-honoring to his gift of rest. And that's all I have for this week. You can click here to watch more parts of this series, or click here to subscribe and keep up with our content. I pray you have a blessed weekend and that your next Sabbath is full of chocolate cake, breaths of fresh air, and rest in the Holy Spirit. Thanks for watching, and God bless.